What ended your toxic family drama? They say the truth will set you free, but first, it has to make you look absolutely batshit. What happened over 2 years was a slow, deliberate suffocation. The kind of psychological warfare that leaves no marks the police will recognize. By the time I was done, I had an opponent whose entire life was a lie. A family whose enabling caused immeasurable damage, and a file cabinet full of evidence that wasn't just my vindication. It was my shield. The first incident was minor, almost forgettable, which is exactly how Evelyn operated. It was 2 days after I closed on the house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet suburban cul-de-sac. Evelyn, my mother's sister and technically my aunt, had insisted on helping me move. I didn't want her there. I had set a boundary with her years ago regarding the constant advice and passive-aggressive suggestions about my life choices. But my mother, Clara, had called me practically weeping, saying Evelyn was going through a hard time and needed to feel useful. This was the family mantra, the enablement mechanism. Evelyn's needs always superseded everyone else's right to peace. The furniture was delivered around 11 a.m. I was directing the movers in the kitchen when Evelyn walked in holding my favorite, heavy-duty cutting board. The walnut one I'd bought after saving up for ages. It was a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. "You know, Liam," she said, not looking at me, but running a finger over a newly visible, shallow gouge near the edge. "I told your mother you would never take care of nice things. I'm surprised you even own this. Did a friend buy it for you? Because you know how bad you are at keeping track of things. I bought that, Evelyn. And it was fine when I put it in the box last night. What did you do to it?" She let out a short theatrical sigh. "Oh look, he's already forgetting. I just found it like this. Honestly, you should be more careful during a move. But don't worry, I know a guy who can sand it down for you. You really need to stop being so defensive when people try to help you. It's a good thing I saw this before you used it and forgot where the scratch came from." The subtle shift of blame, the preemptive offer of a fix that implied I was incompetent, the casual erosion of my memory. It was a signature Evelyn move. The gouge was definitely new. She hadn't just found it. She had done it, then immediately weaponized the damage as proof of my own failing. I took the cutting board from her hand without another word. The interaction lasted maybe 45 seconds, but it left a cold knot in my stomach. I just told the movers to set the boxes in the garage and asked Evelyn to leave, citing a non-existent meeting with the internet installer. She smiled sweetly, kissed me on the cheek and left a smudge of cheap lipstick on my jaw. 2 weeks passed. I was settling in, unpacking the last of the boxes. The house felt like a sanctuary, a hard-won piece of independence. I was enjoying the silence. Then the water bill arrived. It was astronomical, almost 4 times the estimated monthly average for a house of that size. I called the utility company. They confirmed the reading. I checked every faucet, every toilet, and the water meter itself. The meter was spinning slowly, steadily, even when nothing was running. There was a leak. A big one. I crawled under the house. The crawl space was damp, smelled of mildew, and my flashlight beam eventually located the problem. A small, non-essential PVC drainage line for a rarely used laundry sink was fractured, spraying a fine mist of water directly onto the foundation wall. It wasn't a pipe that would burst on its own. It looked like it had been hit, maybe with a blunt object, and then carefully left to leak slowly. The laundry sink was adjacent to the kitchen, exactly where Evelyn had been during the initial furniture delivery. I called a plumber. He confirmed it was not a stress fracture or a freeze break. "Someone hit this pipe, man. It's a clean lateral crack. You should check your insurance, because this is going to be a nightmare for your foundation if it's been leaking for a while." That was the trigger turn. It wasn't about a scratched cutting board anymore. It was about malicious, deliberate, and expensive damage to my home, my most significant investment. Evelyn had been in the kitchen, right near the laundry sink wall, when I was busy with the movers. My suspicion clicked into a concrete certainty. This wasn't her going through a hard time. This was a targeted attack designed to destabilize me financially and emotionally. I called my mother, not with an accusation, but with a question. "Mom, I had a catastrophic plumbing leak. It was apparently intentional damage. Was Aunt Evelyn under a lot of stress 2 weeks ago when I moved? Did she say anything to you about the move, or about me buying the house?" Clara immediately got defensive. "Oh Liam, for God's sake, what are you implying? Evelyn wouldn't hurt a fly. She was trying to help you. You're just paranoid. She loves you. Maybe it was just a shoddy installation. You know, you are being ridiculous, and you need to stop making up drama where there isn't any. I'm not going to listen to this." She hung up on me. That was the second piece of crucial data, the immediate, absolute denial and deflection of the enabler. My mother and the rest of the family had spent decades constructing a protective shell around Evelyn, letting her toxic behavior run unchecked, and then punishing anyone who dared to point out the truth. They were as much a part of the problem as Evelyn was. They feared her theatrics and tantrums more than they valued my well-being. I spent the next 3 days fixing the pipe myself, documenting every step. I took close-up photos of the crack, pictures of the damage to the foundation wall, and time-stamped all of it. I kept the fractured piece of PVC pipe in a sealed plastic bag labeled Evelyn, March 14, 2024, waterline sabotage. I started a physical file for her too, a sturdy dark green manila folder. The first sheet was a timeline. From that day forward, I switched to meticulous strategy and documentation as a weapon. I knew that confronting Evelyn or my mother verbally would only lead to gaslighting, tears, and me being labeled the unstable, ungrateful nephew. I would not win the verbal argument, but I could win the documentation war. My goal was not simply to stop her, but to create an unimpeachable, objective record that would force my family to either acknowledge the truth and face the consequences of their enabling, or definitively cut me out of their lives. A boundary I was now ready to set. I purchased a set of Wi-Fi-enabled, battery-powered security cameras, small enough to be hidden easily, with good night vision. I placed the first one in the bushes outside my back door, angled to cover the whole patio and the garage access. I installed a second one inside the house, cleverly concealed among some books on a high shelf, aimed at the main hallway. I also started carrying a small, voice-activated digital recorder in my pocket whenever I knew I would be around her or my mother. The documentation became a quiet, obsessive pursuit. I would write down everything, date it and categorize it: verbal manipulation, property interference, enabler defense. I started learning about pathological narcissism and pathological lying. Evelyn was a perfect fit. Her manipulations were never for gain. They were for control. She needed to be the center of the emotional universe. And if you pulled away, she would cause chaos until you were forced to pay attention to her again. A month later, Evelyn decided I needed new curtains because the ones I inherited were sad. She didn't ask, she just called me from the fabric store one afternoon. "Liam, I found the most gorgeous linen for your living room. A soft eggshell. It's perfect. Don't even think of paying for it. It's my housewarming gift to you. Can you meet me at the house tomorrow morning?" I already scheduled the tailor to measure for the rod placement. "Evelyn, stop." I cut her off. "I don't want eggshell linen. I like the curtains I have. And I told you, I do not want anyone I haven't hired doing work on my house." There was a silence on the line, the sound of her processing the refusal. Then the emotional pivot. "Oh, I thought you'd be happy. I spent hours looking at swatches. I really thought this would bring some light into your life, but I guess I was wrong. I'm just trying to feel connected to you, Liam. Since your father passed, I just feel so alone." The casual, manipulative use of my dead father was brutal. "I'm sorry you feel alone, Evelyn, but the answer is no. Don't buy the fabric." I hung up. I immediately wrote the incident down, noting the textbook gift with strings maneuver and the immediate shift to pity me. When the gift was refused, the next day, I had a meeting with a new client. I came home around 7 p.m. The front door was locked, but as I walked down the hall, I immediately smelled a faint scent of lemon and pine cleaner, a scent I hadn't used. I walked into the kitchen. My stainless steel dishwasher was open, and the door panel had a long, deep scratch running from the top right to the bottom left. A catastrophic, deliberate gouge. It was ruined. My heart pounded, but not from shock or anger, but from a cold, quiet satisfaction. I walked straight to the hidden camera, retrieved the micro SD card, and played the footage on my laptop. The timestamp was 2:45 p.m. Evelyn's silver sedan pulled up the driveway. She got out, walked directly to the back door, and used a key. I hadn't known she had a key, but the old owners must have given my mother a set, who in turn gave them to Evelyn. She walked in, carrying a large, heavy tool bag. She headed straight for the laundry sink, spent maybe 5 minutes under there, probably checking my repair, before walking back into the kitchen. The camera inside the house caught the next part perfectly. Evelyn walked to the dishwasher. She pulled a house key off her keychain. Not the house key, but a spare she had clearly brought with her, and with a deliberate, slow motion, she pressed the edge of the key hard against the stainless steel and dragged it down the door, creating the deep scratch. She then walked to the laundry cabinet, took out my Windex and a roll of paper towels, wiped the surface down, and walked out. The act was swift, precise, and entirely devoid of any visible emotion. She hadn't been frantic or upset. She was methodical. The camera outside captured her leaving, a small, satisfied smile on her face as she backed out of the driveway. I immediately uploaded the video to a secure encrypted cloud server, then copied the files to 3 separate external hard drives. I also had the image files printed and dated. The evidence was undeniable. I had her on video, committing a felony vandalism offense. The next morning, I drove to my mother's house. I didn't call first. I walked in carrying a small black briefcase. My mother was drinking coffee in the kitchen. "Liam, this is a surprise," she said, looking immediately nervous. I didn't sit down. I put the briefcase on the table and flipped it open. Inside, I had the fractured PVC pipe in its plastic bag, the photos of the foundation damage, and a printed screenshot of Evelyn's face as she scratched the dishwasher. "This is not a surprise visit, Mom. This is an intervention," I said, my voice flat. I didn't raise it. I didn't show anger. This was an informational briefing. "What in God's name is this?" Clara picked up the photo of the scratched pipe. "That is the plumbing she damaged 2 weeks after I moved in, causing $4,000 in foundation repair and water wastage. And this," I slid the photo of her scratching the dishwasher across the table, "is Evelyn keying my brand new dishwasher yesterday afternoon. I have the video evidence, timestamped, backed up on multiple servers, and filed with a local attorney." Clara went white. She stared at the photo. Her hands started to shake, but her reaction wasn't one of horror or regret for me. It was panic for her sister. "Oh my God, Liam. No. No, no. She would never. She's been under so much pressure at work. You can't tell anyone. This would ruin her, her reputation, her career. We have to protect her. Why would you do this? Why are you trying to hurt your own family?" The enablement, the gaslighting, the immediate victim blaming. It was all there, the exact cocktail of toxicity I had predicted. She didn't ask if I was okay, or how much the repair would cost, or why Evelyn was doing this. She only cared about protecting the abuser. I am not trying to hurt the family, Mom. Evelyn is doing that herself, and you're enabling her to do it. You gave her the key to my house. You are complicit in felony vandalism. I have video proof of her breaking into my home and destroying my property. I am not asking you to choose sides. I am informing you that the consequences are already in motion. I pulled out a formal, typewritten letter and slid it across the table. This is a no-contact order. I will file a temporary restraining order on Evelyn, effective today, if I see her anywhere near my property or hear from her directly or indirectly. If you or anyone else in the family attempts to contact me on her behalf, or share any information about me with her, I will consider that a violation of the TRO and contact my lawyer. Clara finally broke, not in grief, but in pure selfish rage. You ungrateful bastard. We raised you. We gave you everything. And you're going to do this to your own aunt? She's sick. She needs help. We have to forgive her. Evelyn is a pathological manipulator, not a sweet sick old lady, I stated, still calm. And no, we don't have to forgive her. She needs mandatory psychiatric treatment, not protection from the consequences of her crimes. I am reclaiming my identity and my life from her control, and you are not going to stop me. I have every single one of your conversations defending her recorded right here. I lightly tapped the briefcase. I stood up. I love you, Mom. But until you can admit that Evelyn has committed crimes against me and that your enabling has put me in physical and financial jeopardy, I cannot have contact with you. Don't call me. Don't text me. Tell Evelyn to stay the hell away from me. This is your final chance to set a boundary. I walked out. I knew I was isolated now. The entire extended family, cousins, uncles, the whole lot, would immediately rally around Evelyn. They always did. They would tell a narrative where I was the erratic, cruel nephew who had a mental breakdown and attacked a grieving, delicate woman. I had to be ready for the counterattack. I took the video evidence, the photos, and the letter to my attorney. She was a meticulous, no-nonsense woman with a reputation for handling messy domestic issues with a clear, legalistic focus. I told her the whole story, presenting the evidence in the same logical sequence I had established. Mr. Davis, she said, reviewing the footage of the dishwasher being keyed. This is very compelling. This is clearly felony vandalism. The deliberate, methodical nature of it shows intent. But if we prosecute, we are going to face a massive character assassination campaign from her and your family. They will claim you are lying, that you faked the video, that you are abusing a vulnerable woman. Your mother's reaction confirms that. We need to be surgical. We are not looking for a conviction. We are looking for absolute, incontrovertible safety and a permanent boundary. She suggested a two-pronged approach. First, we filed the temporary restraining order, TRO, citing the video evidence of the vandalism and the threat it posed to my peace and safety. Second, she drafted a letter to the rest of my immediate family, not as an accusation, but as a formal legal notice that Evelyn was under a TRO due to documented criminal activity, and that any attempt to violate it, including third-party contact, would result in contempt charges and a possible civil suit. The next morning, the TRO was served on Evelyn at her workplace, a small, local nonprofit where she held a minor management position. The resulting chaos was magnificent and entirely predictable. My phone blew up with texts from numbers I hadn't heard from in years. My cousin David, a man I hadn't seen since a funeral 3 years prior, sent a long furious screed. Oh, you ruined her life, you manipulative little shit. She lost her job because of this. They escorted her out of the building. How could you be so cruel? She just wanted to help you. You're sick, Liam. You need to get psychiatric help. We all know you're unstable. We're all going to stand by Evelyn. You are cut off from the family. Don't ever talk to us again. I screenshotted every text. Every single one went into the Evelyn folder. Each one was dated and categorized as third-party violation harassment. Evelyn, desperate for control, did the only thing she knew how to do. Performative victimhood. She posted a long tearful status update on social media. I only saw it because a friend of mine, who was still connected to Evelyn's circle, sent me the screenshot. It breaks my heart that after all I've done for my family, my own flesh and blood would turn on me with cruel, baseless lies. I have been accused of terrible things by someone I deeply love who is clearly going through a terrible breakdown. Please pray for me and for him. The betrayal is unbearable. But I forgive him. I always will. I just hope he gets the help he needs. The reaction was exactly what she wanted. Dozens of likes and prayers poured in. The enablers were doing their job. They didn't need proof. They needed a narrative that made them feel comfortable. And Evelyn's victim status was their comfort blanket. I showed the social media post to my lawyer, Sarah. She's setting the stage for the TRO hearing. By refusing to play the part she wrote for you, you've forced her to escalate. Now, we use the evidence to prove her claims of victimhood are actually calculated lies. The next few months were a quiet, stressful standoff. Evelyn respected the TRO only because she knew I had the video evidence. She would drive past my house slowly, always in her husband's car, never her own, and my hidden camera would document the slow pass-by. Each pass was logged, subtle TRO violation, non-direct contact, date, time. I didn't stop with the criminal evidence. I started a new documentation project, focusing on the financial and psychological harm caused by her lifelong manipulation and the family's enabling. I spent weeks compiling records, old credit card statements where she had borrowed money from my father that was never repaid, insurance claim forms from when she accidentally ran over my childhood bike, and even old emails where she had sabotaged my early job applications by calling the HR departments and giving helpful but damaging information about my supposed instability. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in complex family systems and narcissistic abuse. The therapy wasn't just for my mental health, it was for the record. The therapist documented my narrative, my PTSD symptoms related to the abuse, and his clinical opinion on Evelyn's pathology. This was another weapon, the ultimate legal counterpoint to their claim that I was unstable. I needed a witness, someone who could testify to the systemic enablement. I contacted my cousin, Marcus, David's older brother. Marcus had always been the quiet observant one, the family black sheep who had left town 10 years ago and rarely looked back. I reached out via a private, encrypted messaging app. Marcus, I need to talk to you about Evelyn. I have evidence that she deliberately vandalized my new home. I have a TRO against her. The family is rallying around her, calling me unstable. I know you know how she operates. I'm not asking you to choose sides, I'm asking you for the truth. Marcus agreed to meet me at a neutral location, a diner 300 miles away. Liam, I am not surprised, he said, nursing a cup of coffee. She's been doing this our whole lives. She lives for the chaos. She is a black hole that sucks all the energy and attention out of the room. Our parents, your mom, they let her do it because it's easier than dealing with her tantrums. They're terrified of being on the receiving end, so they feed the monster. I showed him the video of the dishwasher. He watched it twice. His face was grim. Holy fuck. She's sick, man. That's not a moment of passion. That's calculated. David and the rest of them, they won't believe you. But I do. I have a stack of my own shit with her. She stole my identity once to open a credit card. Claimed it was an accounting error. My dad covered it up. Marcus became my reluctant, invaluable ally. He agreed to provide an affidavit to Sarah, documenting his own experiences and his father's cover-up, clearly laying out the long-term pattern of Evelyn's pathological manipulations and the family's enabling behavior. This was the turning point. It proved the abuse was systemic, not a one-off feud, and that the family's defense was a long-standing pattern of protecting a criminal. The final confrontation came with a permanent restraining order hearing 6 months after the initial incident. Evelyn showed up dressed in a demure, soft blue suit, her hair perfectly done, looking like a sympathetic victim. Clara and David were in the gallery, glaring at me. Sarah presented the case. She didn't lead with the vandalism. She led with the pattern. She used Marcus's affidavit to establish Evelyn's history of financial and psychological abuse, and the family's history of enabling. She then called the plumber, who testified about the nature of the pipe damage. She called my therapist, who testified about the psychological impact and the clear pattern of narcissistic abuse. Finally, she played the video. No sound was needed. Just the clear high-definition footage of Evelyn calmly breaking into my home and methodically scratching my dishwasher with a key, a small, triumphant smile on her face as she left. The courtroom went silent. Evelyn's lawyer, a tired-looking public defender, tried to argue that the video was doctored, that it was a case of mistaken identity, and that the defendant was a pillar of the community suffering from misguided grief. Then Sarah hit the family directly. She called my mother to the stand and asked her, point blank, about her reaction when I showed her the evidence. Mrs. Davis, when your son showed you the video of your sister committing vandalism against his property, did you express concern for him, or did you express concern for your sister's reputation? Clara stammered, the performance falling apart. I was worried about my sister. She's fragile. She was going through a lot. Liam should have been more understanding. And you were aware that by dismissing your son's documented evidence, you were enabling a pattern of destructive and possibly criminal behavior. Sarah asked, her voice calm and firm. I don't like that word, enabling, Clara said, pulling at her skirt. I was protecting my sister. Exactly. Sarah said, turning back to the judge. Your Honor, the family's testimony confirms our claim. The defendant is a pathological manipulator who is protected by a deeply ingrained family system of enablement. The only way to ensure the safety and sanity of the petitioner is to legally sever this destructive system. The judge didn't even need to retire to chambers for long. She issued a full, 5-year, permanent protective order against Evelyn. The terms were absolute: no contact, no third-party contact, no proximity to my property, and a mandatory requirement that Evelyn attend court-ordered psychological evaluation and follow all treatment recommendations. The judge cited the video evidence and the documented pattern of enablement as the primary reasons. Ms. Davis, the judge stated directly to Evelyn, the evidence presented here suggests a deep-seated behavioral pathology. I am legally binding you to treatment. Any violation of this order, including the refusal to seek the mandated treatment, will result in immediate incarceration. You are a danger to your nephew, and based on the testimony, a clear danger to yourself and your family. Your nephew is not unstable. He is simply the first person to refuse to participate in your fantasy. The boundaries resolution was finally achieved, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. Evelyn walked out a legally mandated psychiatric patient. Clara walked out with David, looking broken. They didn't speak to me. The family was definitively fractured, but for the first time in my life, I was genuinely free of Evelyn's toxic control. I was alone, but my house was now truly my own. The integrity of my life, the reclamation of my identity, was now a matter of documented, objective record. I had proof, not just feelings. And in the world of pathological manipulators, proof is everything. If you have ever had to be the only person in your life to hold a pathological manipulator accountable, what did you do to protect your sanity and establish boundaries? Let me know in the comments.
Thanks for watching. If you got this far, leave a comment, like if you liked it, and follow for more.